Welcome to Wake the Bear Radio with your host, Brandon Johnson, Chris Hurst, and Ron Powers.
Hi there, this is Chris Hurst for Wake the Bear Radio, and I'm coming to you solo because my compatriots in this endeavor, one is he's ministering in Malawi for a few weeks, and the other's at a Patriot workshop. So Brandon will be back next week to join us. But I wanted to use this time where I'm to kind of solo. I am solo, just me, and release some things that have been on my heart that I wouldn't have the extended time with my other co-hosts. And I titled today's broadcast as Why I Love Trump. And so I wanted to release some things that I thought were really important, that it's time early to get behind our president and to understand what is really going on behind the scenes, to know that this isn't just another four-year election, and we are not just doing a political thing when we support Trump. And so this is my all my opinion, as I'm here alone, and it's a platform today that I wanted to share with you and encourage you to say, hey, if you agree, get on board and begin to speak loudly about your affections too for our president. You know that in August 2023, there were more than 290 presidential candidates for the Republican nomination for 2024. That's pretty amazing because that obviously we didn't see all of them on the stage at the primaries, at the debates last week, and probably a lot of the times there's so many is because they want to get their name in print, or they want to say, hey, I ran for president for the 2024. But basically, what we have is that there are some publicly denied people who probably could be running, who aren't running right now. Tucker Carlson is one of them. I think a lot of us have a lot of affection for him. And as you know, he's the former newscaster, and now he's doing his own journalistic programming on X. There's Liz Cheney, whom I have absolutely no positive affection towards, other than that she's an image bearer of God. But she has some deep state connections, and she won't be running for Republican tickets. If she runs again, it'll be independent, I'm sure. And then there's Tom Cotton. You know, he's the senator from Arkansas, and he could get in the running, but he's denied it. Dan Crenshaw, people have said, hey, why doesn't he run? He's got a cool eye patch, and he was in the military. And he does have some very distinctive, very distinguished features. He looks rather presidential, but he isn't as he seems. Let me tell you, I do believe that he has some questionable roots, and I don't believe that his motives are totally pure. And so, one is Kristi Noem, and I fell in love with her when she hosted the Trumps at the July 4th. Where was it? It was at the Mount Rushmore monuments, and it was such a beautiful celebration day. And she said, when COVID happened, I am not closing my states. Hallelujah. You know, I want to champion her. And I do think she is a future candidate at some point. And Mike Pompeo, we know that people have looked at him. I don't think it's his time. I'm not even 100% sure he's a white hat. I don't know where he is in the Alliance Federation as far as those governments and military operations that are trying to get rid of the deep state across the globe and get rid of globalists. He was the CIA head when under Trump, and he was also Secretary of State. So just prior to that, so I don't really know where he is. So Mark Rubio, Paul Ryan, obviously Donald Trump Jr. has been named a few times as, hey, maybe he should be running. Ivanka, his daughter, Trump's daughter, excuse me, I'm fighting very hard to get rid of a cough. And so last week we saw the Republican primary debates. And as far as I could count, there were 7 candidates on board on the stage. And what it takes for a candidate to be in the debates is 1% of voter support. Excuse me. They have to receive donations of 40,000 individuals, and then they have to sign this loyalty pledge to back whomever the ultimate winner of the party presidential nomination is. And so who do we see? We saw Doug Burgum, and he was on crutches because he just pulled his Achilles tendons. We saw DeSantis, and he really had quite a kind of flat showing. We saw Nikki Haley, who is the one female, and she says that she can kick hard with her high heels, but I think she needs a little bit more than high heels to face what needs to be faced off for our nation. Chris Christie was booed off the stage, as he should have been. He has been he has had nothing good to say about Trump, and he has been in butting heads with Trump for a long time. Mike Pence, he barely met the donor numbers to get to the debate. And Vivek Ramaswamy, he's rather the kind of the GQ biotech entrepreneur who sounds very good. I love that he said that he wouldn't support Ukraine if he were elected president, as we shouldn't be supporting that war. And he also said that he'd get rid of the Department of Education, which I'd say, let's get rid of that thing. It can go, and bye-bye. We'll be happy to see it go as it tries to make big government the ruler and reigner over local jurisdictions. Tim Scott, he was the Black candidate, and God bless him, he supports 15-week abortion bans at a minimum, and I champion that. And of course, Donald Trump, he also qualified. I think I got everybody on that, but oh, no, I didn't. I forgot Ada. Asa Hutchinson, whom Trump sarcastically calls Ada, and he didn't give the reason why, which got all of us digging. And believe me, when Trump gives a nickname to somebody, there is something behind it. He's not just mean. He's going, there's something you need to look into. And so everybody started digging on their computer. And I'm not quite sure what the deal is, but, Ada's kind of a woman's name. And I'm wondering if we'll find out some sort of something about him. He called him pasty and pale and rather limp. So my guess is that he might have some things in his closet that will soon be revealed. So the debate was a bit chaotic, and I found that interesting because the moderators had no control over the situation, neither the crowd nor the candidates. And there seemed to be a lot of talking over, and even Nikki Haley, she was kind of saying to the moderators, you need to take control of the situation. There's chaos. She let him know that she didn't like the lack of control. And I think it kind of tells you what her personality is as far as needing control and not doing well in chaos. Christie, he called Trump a coward, and he's going to eat those words. I guarantee he has no idea what a strong candidate he is up against, or maybe he does know very well. And so he's trying to trick the people. So anyway, the moderators failed in getting clear answers from a lot of the candidates. And the clear winner in the debate was Donald John Trump. So it could scarcely have turned out better for someone who wasn't even there. And why would he be there? He's got a 40-point lead in the polls, and the candidates that he need to beat him, they don't need to be taking pot shots at him. He doesn't need to be their fodder of the firing squad. And so what was so interesting is that he and Tucker Carlson had an interview that was pre-taped, and it aired at exactly the same time. And I think it was in your face, hey, notice who's going to be watched, who isn't going to be watched, and what the people think about what is the most important thing that needs to be said. So, why wasn't he there? He didn't need to be there. People watched him for 4 years. We all know his work ethics. We know his policies. We know he's taken shots for us. We know that he has a strong personality. We know his policies. We know how he interacts with world leaders. We know his generosity when he refused to take a salary during his administration. And so we have watched him. And then we got to watch him in both the campaign leading up to the 2016 election. And we've gotten to see him since November of last year, because he was the first candidate to announce his candidacy when he opened up 1 week after the midterm elections there at Mar-a-Lago. If you remember, he came out with the 17 flags in Palm Beach in that beautiful, beautiful setting by invitation only. And he announced that he was going to be opening up his campaign. And basically, what did he say? He said, I don't want to sit there for an hour or two, whatever it's going to be, and get harassed by people that shouldn't even be in the running. Should I do that? And he said, a network that isn't partial or friendly to me, and they're backing Ron DeSanctimonious like crazy. So he's referring to the Fox News media that put on the debates. And he said, even though they've given up on Ron, it's a lost cause. And so that's pretty much what he had to say about, Trump had to say about the primary debates. And except for that, he focused in his Truth Social account. He said, wow, my interview with Tucker Carlson, it turned out to be the single most watched video and interview in history. Such a great honor to have participated. And it had over 257 million views and counting. I was one of those that viewed and gave him priority over watching the debates for the Republican primary candidacy. So I want to talk a little bit about why I love Trump as I transition, because when we look at the debates, they did talk about some things about the debates as far as who would support Trump if he were the candidate, and he got not just arrested, he got convicted of his crimes that he's currently being indicted for. And the one that said, Chris Christie said he wouldn't support him. And so I found that interesting. The Trump derangement syndrome that we've heard about in the past it's when people manifest. It's almost a spiritual manifestation with a physical outlash of doing unreasonably hateful things towards people who like Trump, or when Trump is on the news or is on a monitor when he's giving a speech. And I want you to know it's a very real thing. In 2016, I'm a resident of California. I risked the paint job on my car and proudly drove around with my Trump sticker on. And I thought about it a long time before I put it on, because I just gotten a nice car for the first time in ever that I could remember. And it wasn't new, but it was pretty. And I didn't want it to get all keyed up and vandalized. So I also did several freeway overpass rallies for Trump. And I saw the thumbs up and those that gave the middle finger. And believe me, Trump derangement syndrome is very real. And I think it's going to be even more real in this election cycle because the cost is even more. I had many give me the middle finger while I was driving. They'd be angry, they'd be honking, they'd put down their window, they'd yell things at me, many profanities. They'd drive up on me in dangerous ways. They'd express their anger and opinion in law-breaking ways, which is interesting. They didn't just let me drive. I didn't do that with the Joe Biden stickers, which we didn't have a lot in California, but we had some. It's funny, the sticker thing I think people knew that he wasn't much of a candidate and they didn't want to advertise it on their car because that, it's hard to get those stickers off. That's when I knew that no doubt this election isn't just another 4-year election. It really is a spiritual battle. And so what we're going to see ahead, I believe, is physical manifestations of a kinetic war, as well as manifestations of hatred and violence and backlash against our president. And I believe that this 4-year election isn't just an election, it's a battle for our republic and those wanting to take away. They don't care about playing by the rules. They don't care about being fair, doing things lawfully, or any other civilized form of the election process. This has been put in rules by our legal system and our election system. They don't care about it. And I said it before, I think many know that this is a zero-sum game and that he who wins in 2024 is going to release whether or not we are a communist nation or we maintain our republic. So I just want to say that very clearly, that this isn't just an election that we're playing politics with. So the deep state and their demonic Luciferian cabal, they are an army of witches, magicians, and warlocks. That's what the CIA calls itself, because they do operate in spiritual warfare and they use magic and other forms of energy from a spiritual realm to empower many of what they're getting, a lot of the power that they're getting. And so there are black operations going on we know not of. And so I do want to release that very clear message that it's so important that we vote and that we understand what our vote means. Because if you abdicate your vote, you've already sat down and said, I surrender, I give up to the deep state. So let me just talk about Donald John Trump. He makes my face glow. What's not to like about him? Making America great. Why is that so horrible? Why is the MAGA term like a 4-letter word to the MSM? And I think it's because they are so evil. They consider loving our nation as evil. They don't want to see it prosper. And they don't want us to be proud of it because that will take away their narrative. And they want us to be afraid to say, I love my country. I'm glad I'm American. I'm part of some of the greatest people of every color, every former nationality. But we trust in God and we uphold this republic. I love Trump because he's raw and real. And he reminds me a lot of my father, who's brusque and loud and confident. He was a very strong leader. He was what I'd call a man's man, but he also, was loved by women because he was strong and protective. He was an Air Force fighter pilot, a colonel, and a wing commander during the Vietnam War. He was secretary in the Pentagon of the Joint Chiefs during the Kennedy era, and he was a patriot and a maverick of sorts. So very much like Trump, who's a maverick of sorts. I think my father didn't make the generals list because he often said what he meant, meant what he said, and he offended people. And he didn't necessarily go along party lines. So when Trump has what are termed mean tweets, of course, he hasn't really had any tweets. He's been on X once, and we'll talk about that. But his truths don't bother me because I grew up in an atmosphere of warfare. And what we're needing right now is a president during warfare because we are at war. I don't want him to be my pastor. I want him to clean up corruption and the deep, extreme evil that our nation is under, and to be able to bring these broken things that are collapsing our republic back into alignment and back into their original design so that we can be America the Beautiful again. And we can live a republic of true freedom with the Bill of Rights being our foundation. So, God he's writing a greater story than the invasion, infiltration, and turmoil, which is over us right now. Yes, we are at war, but we're not alone. We have a God who's fighting with us. Jesus, he had a tattoo on his thigh and on his, I think it's on his forearm, and he's riding a white horse. So he's El Gabor is one of his names, the Lord of angel armies, El Sabaoth, Lord Sabaoth. El Gabor means the fighter, the champion. He is the fighter. He's fought for us. God is writing a greater story than anything that Antifa, Satanists, or any other form of evil in the Luciferian system that the deep Illuminati infiltrated roots wanted to bring in. Every time God writes this story, let me tell you, it ends well. He's able to shift the narrative better than any CIA storyline. And that's without mind control. He uses love. He uses redemptive power. He uses his blood. He brings dead things to life. And he is releasing resurrection power wherever he goes. And I believe that Trump is a part of his story, God's greater story. And because of that, I think God found and looked for, I think he kind of looked left and right. His eyes went throughout the earth to find someone to be strong enough to stand against the Midianites and the Jebusites and the Amalekites and the Canaanites and the Nephilim and all the other ites. I love that God raises up champions for their day to bring about his purposes, and that he has different faces for different periods of time. This is a war that we are in. We're not going to be in a war. Well, we might be in a different type of war soon with China doing live fire exercises right on Taiwan's shores, and also the provocation of the Ukrainians to Russia. But right now, we have been in an information war, a fifth generation war, as General Michael Flynn would call it. But Trump, he has business savvy and he has negotiation skills. He understands the art of war. He understands the art of the deal. And he is so smart. He's read Sun Tzu's book on war. He was in military academy as a young man. And so he understands discipline. He understands being a statesman. He has read our history, understands our Constitution. He is 77 years old. And in a sense, he's a type of national father, too. And so that's why he draws such great crowds. He's not a rock singer. He isn't cool and hip. He does dance, but his dance is, it's the Trump dance. And people love him for it because he's really, I think it's kind of cute because he's not about how he looks. He knows, I'm just going to have a good time and who I am and take it or leave it. And so he's comfortable in his own skin. I love him because he's doing what he said he would do. He is the only politician I can think of that actually kept his promises. And, if he hadn't been harassed, if he hadn't been persecuted and hampered every part of those 4 years he was president, in the 2016 time, he would have gotten even more done. But he was handcuffed policy-wise, and often infiltrators from within his own ranks would come in pretending they were for him, and they weren't. They were traitors. They were traitors. And so I just want to say I love him for what he did do and what he is continuing to do. You know, Elon Musk put out a poll on X last week, and he says, I want to take an informal poll. How many of you want Trump back on X? And then he said, I do. And that was Friday. And today's Tuesday. Excuse me for not going live. Last night, I had technical problems because the tech brain of our trio is he's serving the Malawi people right now. And pray for them if you think about them, because they are doing a medical journey, and all their supplies have been held up in kind of a corrupt holding station. So the government of Malawi doesn't want to let them go. So let's just release a prayer over them right now. In the name of Jesus, we say that those supplies will get released, that those doctors and nurses will have everything they need to bring good health to the people of Malawi, and that the enemy's tactics will not work, that the blackmail and bribery that is so much a part of that system and part of the deep state will be broken off and will be disassembled. And we say this in the mighty name of Jesus. So anyway, I was supposed to go live. I didn't go live. This is the third attempt at my recording, and hopefully I'm live now, but I can't stop and look because I'm not that savvy, and you don't want to see me doing that. So anyway, back to the Elon Musk's question, who wants to see Trump on X? You know, he hasn't been on X since he was deplatformed 2.5 years ago by Twitter. But a year ago in November, it was right about the time that he said he was going to be starting his campaign for 2024. Elon actually gave him permission to come on board. It was right after Elon purchased Twitter, before he changed the name, and he activated Trump's account for it. And we've heard nothing about it. So he was trying to get a little motion, I think, for this. And we just heard a lot of different views, but almost all of them said, we think that he should be back. And a lot of those were not MAGA people on X, formerly known as Twitter. And Elon said, we need Trump to join the conversation. Not only is he funny, but he speaks his mind, as you can see. And a guy called Zero, I think it might be kind of like Zorro, he said, not even your worst enemy should be silenced. And I believe that. So there are many on the left, many on the right, who all are for hearing the voice, who are probably 1 in 12 to 15 people that I read that were saying, no, we don't want to hear about him. The vast majority said, let's go ahead and bring him back on. A guy called, and it might be a lady, B. Mechi, said, here's my list of why I say no. And that person memed a blank sheet of paper. So I love the discourse that's happening. And I think that, Trump is back on X, not just by permissions, but he had an opening post on August 24th, and this is the 29th. So it was 5 days ago. And let me see if I can share my screen just to let you see that. This was his first post since he was deplatformed. Sorry, I'm trying to get used to how to do all this since Ron isn't here. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. And what we see is his mugshot. And we see the words election interference in the first line, never surrender in the second line, and DonaldTTrump.com in the third line. And if you look at that as an acrostic, it is END. I don't think that's a mistake. I don't think it's accidental. I think he's sending a very strong message about he wants to end. This is the beginning of the end for the deep state. And whether they know it or not, things are fighting back, that they're going to be getting the full fury of Donald Trump. The last, it was a tweet at that time that Donald Trump did before he was deplatformed. If you look at the date, you can see here it's January 8th, 2021. So that was 2.5 years ago. And that was 2 days after January 6th. So he has not tweeted since then until this mugshot. So I want you to know, and if you see that he's still getting follows and he's still getting hearts, even now from that old tweet that just changed a second ago. But he said to all those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration. And then below that, he says, the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first, and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. And I think that's a prophetic word that he's talking about. This is the time our voice, our giant voice is going to be heard. And so that's one of the reasons I love Trump, is he is a future. He looks forward and he's calling us to say, speak up. You have a voice. Be heard. Don't be silent. The only one keeping our mouths shut is us. So don't be silent and find a platform where you're not censored. And then he said, they will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. And I think he's talking about the days ahead that are when possibly he might be elected president or come back into office, whatever that might be. So I also just want to talk about why I love Trump. You know, that picture of him at his mugshot, it feels to me like he's saying enough is enough. He isn't intimidated. He isn't quiet. The look in his eyes during that mugshot, it was pretty awesome. So I just know that I believe that Trump, he is messaging and communicating to us. He is not finished, and he has the resolve of Patton, who took he had less military assets than his enemies, and he won battle after battle during World War II. And so I think that Trump, he is not a uniparty man. I love him because he is indeed America's president. He stated that on Tucker Carlson's interview. He said he's not just Republican president, he is everyone's president. And if you listen to that interview, you'll notice he was using the present tense, not the past tense. And I think after reading the tweets on X, even his non-fan base find him very interesting, very compelling, and that there are very few who would not at least listen to conversations that he hasn't, that he wants to have. And so when Trump talks about the Democrats, and he said this on Tucker's interview last week, he said, I think they hate our country. You want to know the truth? When you see open borders and when you see these policies that they have and so many other things that are so sad to see, we have a country that's very fragile right now. It's more fragile than I've ever seen. And so, that's true. Trump, I think he's expressing, we are in dire straits. We are in a place of an intersection. And I think he really wants us to understand that. He wants us to know that. And Trump isn't afraid to stand against the extreme evil and call it out. So his leadership is not Republican or Democrat leadership. Most of the Republicans in Congress, they have been compromised. If you don't know that, then that would be the answer to why haven't they demanded election integrity? Why haven't they demanded that the Democrats stop with these election fraud indictments and other indictments. Why is the Republican Party in Congress, the Senate and the House, not stood up? And I would say by and large, of course, there are exceptions, they are compromised, whether it's by terror, because I'll tell you the enemy in the deep state is a deep snake. It is scary. They terrorize, they bribe, they threaten, they have sex tapes from Epstein, they have bank records, and they know how to use them. They have silenced, they have killed, they have suicided, they have done much to leaders in our government, so that there are many weak leaders. The Republicans didn't support Trump during his first 2 years in office either. And you look at Mitch McConnell, he's a great example of that most of Congress and the Senate, they are bought and paid for, and they are under an extreme level of fear right now. Maybe they're afraid of losing their position, their money, or maybe they're afraid of being exposed with something very, very embarrassing. And they probably should be, because there is a lot of dark stuff going on. And I love Trump because, he knows who he's running against. He is not running against Joe Biden. He's running against the Clinton clan, the Bushes, that whole Obama clan, that group, the ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, NPR, the Murdochs, the Soroses. He's running against players in the deep state. Just look at the Council of 300, look at Davos, look at the Bilderbergs, look at the UN, look at the WHO, look at the CDC. You'll know who he's running against. Look at the CIA main players, FBI main players, Justice Department main players, and you'll know who he's running against. They are operatives in a very dark system. And so it's so very interesting, because Tucker addressed that this is a dangerous place to be. And he said, I've watched the trajectory, Tucker said, since 2015. And when you got into politics, it all started with protests against you, organized protests by the left, and then the impeachments twice. And he said, do you think it's going to get violent? And he was talking to Trump. Are you worried that they're going to try to kill you? Why wouldn't they try and kill you, honestly? And when he said that, I was kind of shocked that he was, Tucker was that honest. But Trump, he didn't answer the question. But what he did say is they are savage animals. And these people are sick, really sick. He said, we do have great people in the Democratic Party. And you have great people who are Democrats. But most of the people in our country, yes, they are fantastic. But, and then he kind of switched the subject. He said, I'm not just the Republican president. I am the president of everybody. And I've seen what these people will do. And so that was his answer. He didn't flinch. He didn't avoid the question. And I don't know if you know about it, but there have been numerous security incidences against Trump. Many letters with ricin in it. Even a guy from, I think it was North Dakota, who stole a forklift and said he was going to go into the Trump barricade and the procession and knock over Trump's car and kill him. And many who have tried with guns. That we've seen their attempts that the Secret Service have interrupted, but even those that have tried to kill his son Barron and his family members, and some sources state that there are over 28 public assassinations against him, and that doesn't count all the black ops of the CIA, FBI, and other covert operations like the Kennedy assassination. Those are the ones that I'm most concerned about. And those are the ones that I pray against as I pray for Trump. And I pray for him often. And so I want you to know that you should be praying for him too, and that there is a real danger as he stands up and fights for America, because he is not fighting for himself. He's fighting for us. And he said in a rally in May 2023, I think it was in Ohio. He said, "I know it often feels like the cards are stacked against hardworking Americans, against the silent majority, against you. How could you not feel that way, considering all the left's vicious witch hunts and their lies and attacks, their endless election interference, and their pursuit to cancel out your vote, and the Soros $75 million scheme to buy the White House for Crooked Joe. But there's one thing Soros and the radical Dems underestimate time and time again. It's the nearly 75 million patriots like you who make up our incredible MAGA movement. No matter how vicious the attacks become, you are my courage." He said that. We are his courage. "You are my hope and my unbreakable resolve to save America." And what's interesting, his campaign motto went from "Make America Great Again" to "Save America." I don't know if you saw that. And it was very intentional. I know it was intentional. And he wants the American people to know this is about saving America. It's not just another 4-year election. So we do have a serious problem with election integrity, obviously, and we'd like to get that. We'd like to get that sorted out. I mean, it's the very reason Trump is being indicted. For some reason, the left thinks that it's illegal to ask the question, "Hey, I'm concerned. Let's look at this more closely." So why would that be? I think that the real reason is because if people look closely, they would see some stuff. And that stuff isn't wanted to be seen by those who are doing illegal and wrongful activity. And what Trump said back in June 5th, he truthed something about the first indictment, which, if you remember, was about the boxes, as he calls it, that were taken from Mar-a-Lago. And he said, "How can the DOJ possibly charge me who did nothing wrong when no other presidents were charged? When Joe Biden won't be charged for anything, including the fact that 1,850 boxes, most of it classified, dating back before he was a senator to his Senate days. These things even shocked Democrat senators." So he said also President Clinton had documents, and one in court, crooked Hillary deleted 33,000 emails. He keeps bringing these things up because he says, don't put this behind us. We're not forgetting. It is not move forward and pretend it didn't happen. We have got to pay close attention. And so these very same things that others have done are the reasons he's being indicted. I wanted to say, too, something that's on my heart. I love Trump because he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in Israel. The United States was the first country, if you remember, to acknowledge Israel as a country back in 1948. And they were the first to recognize Jerusalem as a capital, even though all the Knesset, when anybody of any importance goes to Jerusalem, to Israel, they go to Jerusalem. And basically, he brought that embassy to Jerusalem where it belongs. And so he actually truthed, and he said, for over 20 years, every previous American president has exercised the law of waiver, refusing to move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem or to even recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital city. And then he talked about, I am going to move this thing forward. And that was in May 2018. He said, I've determined that it's time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And, I've been to Jerusalem quite a few times, Israel, at least 5 times. And a few times ago, I got on a bus and I went to where our American embassy was being set up. At that time, it wasn't occupied. It had just been purchased. The news had just broken that we were going to have an embassy in Jerusalem. And it is a beautiful embassy. It's on those hills that face the wall of the old wall of Jerusalem and the Davidic city. It's that same place that the Jordanian armies came over with the Arab the 6 Day War. It's right there on that same hillside. And so I just love that he does what he says. He defeated ISIS and he said he would. We would never have left Afghanistan in the withdrawal method that Biden had if Trump had been in office. He would not have abandoned our equipment or our people. He wouldn't have let that chaos happen. He would have decommissioned the bases properly, and we wouldn't have had the chaos and the loss of life that he has had, that we saw as a result of Biden. And I love Trump because he's not about himself. He has a resilience and a drive that I have never seen, a work ethic quite like him. Kennedy had a great work ethic, but quite like him in the office of president. And he's able to get back up day after day after day and step against the extreme evil in this nation, that it's been embedded in our businesses, our government, our non-elected agencies, our NGOs, our schools and our churches, our banks, our military, for heaven's sakes. He's felt firsthand the extreme evil of the political and the personal persecution. He's felt it physically. He's heard it in his ears. He's felt the spiritual witchcraft coming against him. And he sacrificed his time, his money, his family, his health, his safety, and his golden years. You know, he's an older man, but he has the spirit of a strong, fierce, resolved individual who is ready to fight the deep state. And we need a president who will be tough. Trump has called Biden. He's called him out. He said, "What's wrong with this guy?" You know, he seems confused all the time. There's something wrong with him. When Trump says stuff, he wants you to notice, yeah, there is something wrong with him. And why is it that we're not demanding that, hey, he is not up to the task? We want a full disclosure. We have the right. He is in the top office of our presidency. And we know, you know, he's spent 40% of his presidency. Biden has on vacation. And with Tucker, he talked about, he made some comments about, you know, why do they keep showing him on the beach, on the beach, on the beach? What's with this beach? You know, he seems to be looking like he's walking on toothpicks. And he says, you know, that grass at the White House is only 2 inches tall. So why is he walking like he's on toothpicks? And, you know, when he says things, again, he's not being mean. He's wanting you to look into things because he's really, really, really smart. And he's strategically and tactically doing something. He's a fast learner and he's disciplined and he's honest. So we need to really try and figure out what is it that he's trying to say when he says, you know, he can't even pick up his own beach chair. And those things only weigh 2 ounces, but he can't pick it up. You know, they're made to be really light. And then they just seem to love to show them on the beach. So I think there's something about the beach. I don't know what, but he doesn't say things for no reason at all. So just keep tabs on him. You know, Trump, I love him because he's really funny. He's very entertaining. And he talked about gas run cars versus electric cars at Tucker's interview last week. And he goes, you know, people should have choices. I don't have anything against electric cars, but if you go for a 4-hour drive, the only good part about that 4-hour drive that you can relax, the happiest moments, he said, are the first 10 minutes. In other words, when you get charged, And the unhappiest parts are the next hours, because you're petrified that you're not going to be able to find another charger. And then he said, I'm not knocking electric charge cars, but they're fine if that's what you want to buy. But people should have a choice, is what he said. And then he made fun of California, or my state, and he said, and California, they love these cars. And there is a big brownout going on now. There's a grid disaster. And then he said, frankly, there is a grid disaster over the whole country. And that caught my attention. So I think we're going to see the grid disaster manifest. And he said, in a very short time, you've got millions and millions and millions of these electric cars in California. And when they have these brownouts, basically and essentially, these cars don't work. And it was true. It was true. I just want to say, as I'm closing up, that when you hear Trump talk about things like fake news, he's telling you something. It's what made us look into Murdoch, the globalist, and realize that Fox News, the Wall Street Journal, and Murdoch isn't just an owner of a corporate news agencies. He's part of the globalist plan. He's part of the Mockingbird media. It's called Mockingbird because of the dark operation of mind control and programming that were infiltrated through the Project Mockingbird. If you saw Out of Shadows, and if you haven't, go see it, that talks about the infiltration of the media and Hollywood. And it talks about the operatives of the deep state narrative that are trying to manipulate Americans into buying their agenda so that they can give us a one world government that is run by Luciferian elites. And, he mocks him over and over, not because he's mean. He wants you to remember they are globalists. They are CIA operatives. They are not real media. They are fake people. In their position, they've been installed. It's the same as when he called Crooked Hillary crooked. He wasn't calling her crooked because of just the Clinton Foundation and the illegal activities of her having a server that wasn't protected in her house and keeping classified documents that could be hacked into by our enemy government so that they could pay her and give money to have top secret information out of them. He called her crooked because he understood that she is a high-level witch and she does things that are horrible, beyond our understanding, horrible. And then he said something interesting to Tucker. He said, "Crooked Joe Biden is so bad. He's the worst president in the country." And then he talked about. He said, I took that name from Hillary. I don't give two people the name at the same time. So I took the Crooked Hillary and I retired it. And I think it was a very good day for her. I bet she's very happy. And now I'm using it for Joe because he's crooked. When he said that, it said to me one of two things. I believe that either that she is not in a place of freedom right now. I think she's either dead or she's in jail because he has taken her name that doesn't have to be used by her any longer and repurposed it for Joe Biden. So just know that when he talks, he has a reason for what he talks about. And so there are lots of reasons I love Trump, and you all have listened for quite a long time. I do want to just finish up by saying this zero-sum game, it was reflected in Maui. Maui is a kinetic war against our country by deep state operatives, by an evil federation and military force that is embedded in our country and other nations. Hundreds and probably thousands of people are dead, and many of them are children. These people are savage beasts. That place, if you look at it, looks like a war zone because it is a war zone. And right now, I think there's 17 other cities in America that are burning, and they are not normal fires. There is war going on in our nation, and we need to pay attention to it. And so just understand we are at war. Maui is a war, and that the workers of darkness in our own government are trying to destroy our nation. And so I just want to end by praying for President Trump. There are a lot of other things I'd like to say about him because I love him. I love his bravery. I thank God for him. I know that he was put in place for such a time as this. And I just want to end with a prayer that Dutch Sheets wrote on Friday for our nation. And so if you just pray with me, I'm going to read it. Give Him 15 is Dutch Sheets' prayer blog, and you can find it givehim15.com, I believe. So just agree with me in prayer if you can. Father, as we live life in this confused and unstable world, remind us to remain tethered to our lifeline. May the spiritual womb be ever pregnant with your plans and visions, causing us to birth your life and actions. And like Joshua, help us to keep first things first so that we can prosper and be successful. We pray also today for those on the front lines of the legal battle being waged for America. We intercede for those being unjustly persecuted and charged with crimes by our own corrupt justice system. We pray for President Trump, those who serve him, and those who are appropriately questioning election activities. We ask for speedy justice, and we also ask that justice be served to those operating in unjust ways. Expose and shake down their evil systems in our land. Shatter the teeth of the wicked, like you say in Psalms 3:7. We ask you to give provision to those individuals being unjustly charged, one of the goals being to drain them financially. We also ask that boldness and courage be given to them, as one of the purposes of these charges is to stop people from questioning elections in the future and from speaking out against the evil in our government. They want righteous people to stay out of the government for fear of slander and financial drain. Give strength against this intimidation from Jezebel. We ask that the strength be given to the righteous for the shaking of the wicked and their activities. And we ask these all in Jesus' mighty name. And then he released a decree. We decree that the evil structures in America are being judged and destroyed, and that we will stay connected to our source during this time of shaking. And so right now, as I close, I want to say this is Chris Hurst for Wake the Bear Radio. And on behalf of Ron Powers and Brandon Johnson, I just want to say God bless you and thank you for listening to Why I Love Trump. Goodbye.
This has been Wake the Bear Radio on KSCO 1080 on your AM dial.